Growing up as a young child, I can remember dreaming of growing up. Don't do it, it's a trap. But that is exactly what I did. I can remember being maybe 5 or 6 years old. I would drag my brother around the house. I was determined that he was going to be the daddy and I was going to be the mommy, and he would do this whether he liked it or not. I wanted to pretend to be my idol, my mother, Tiffany. From a very small age, I always looked up to my mother. I thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world, and why wouldn't I think that? She was smart, funny, and always, this is going to make me cry. She was smart, funny, and always had a smile on her face. I just knew that when I grew up, I would be just like her. I remember once when I was 9, I fell very ill with E. coli. Although my mother had no idea what was going on at the time, she knew from her training as a nurse's aide and just plain common sense that something was very wrong with me. With a fever of 104, no ability to walk, and a massive nausea and vomiting, my mother knew she had to get my fever down. So she quickly threw me in the bath of ice-cold water and called the doctor. As advised by my doctor, she rushed me to the hospital. Now, my mother was the sweetest person, but it was never wise to cross her. Once we had arrived, I was accessed by the doctor. The doctor quickly came to the conclusion that I had the flu and it would be free for me to leave. Well, my mother knew from working in the hospital that it was shift change. That doctor just wanted to go home. My mother requested another opinion. Of course, that was after she had told him what she thought about him and where he could go. And I'll give you a hint. It was at home. With the second doctor looking me over, he quickly realized something definitely wasn't right, and I was immediately scheduled for exploratory surgery the following morning. If my mother hadn't stood up to that doctor, I have no doubt that I would not be here today. She was my hero. Well, after years go by, I grew into those awkward teenage years. My mother also had suffered a terrible divorce from an abusive marriage. This gave her a newfound freedom, something I definitely wasn't used to. She did a lot of things that I didn't agree with, and this in turn made me angry with her. Not only angry, but disappointed. She was going out more and spending more time with her friends, and quite frankly, I didn't understand it. When I was 13, my mother became ill. She was sick for many years. I became the woman of the house, taking on all the responsibilities. I felt so much anger towards her for not living up to my fantasy of being the perfect mother. I didn't take her being sick seriously, and I just didn't understand how serious it was. I'm going to have to do this over again. I look back on those years with such regret, but I can say one thing for certain. I never stopped loving her. In January 2013, my mother passed away. It was a shock to us all because she was so young, only 44. For the past 2 years since her death, I have done a lot of soul searching. She often haunts my thoughts. Almost everything reminds me of her, but those are often good thoughts. I realize now that my mother was never perfect, but she did what she thought was best at the time, just like I'm doing now with my own daughter. Even though my mother and I never had a perfect relationship, she impacted my life immensely. And just like when I was a little girl, my mother will forever be my hero. Thank you. And then here is everybody. I don't even know if I can get this to work.